Hello everyone. Today we will be looking at how to do a calculation for an ointment prescription. My name is Sukhpreet Gill. I am a fourth-year student and part of the class of 2021 at California North State University College of Pharmacy. This video is part of my API rotation with Dr. Lay and will be compounded in the PRC 609 lab. So what do we have to begin with? This is our prescription and what we will be working from. But before we start working on calculations, let's interpret what this actually means. So we'll be looking at the prescription portion first. Here we can see that we will be compounding zinc oxide ointment USP. USP stands for United States Pharmacopoeia and means that this product has been compounded following their guidelines. Here we can see that we will need to dispense 30 grams to our patient. The SIG, or directions, state that we are to consult the patient to apply to affected area, QID, or 4 times daily, UTIC, or as directed. The second part of our handout is our formula for compounding the prescription. It is important to understand that this means before proceeding with our calculations. The API for this compound is zinc oxide, and the formula calls for 200 grams worth. Next is our levigating agent, or wetting agent, mineral oil, which calls for 150 grams. The last ingredient is white ointment USP, which calls for 650 grams. Note, this has USP written at the end of it, meaning it is also a compounded component of our formula. We'll delve more into this when we get to calculating how much we will need for our prescription. At the end of this list, we see that all of these amounts listed above are to make a total of 1,000 grams. However, for our prescription, that is far too large of a quantity. Although our prescription only calls for 30 grams to be dispensed, we will compound a little extra to account for loss while preparing the medication. The total which we will be calculating and adjusting the formula quantities to is a total of 40 grams. The first calculation we will be doing is for zinc oxide. Remember, our formula called for 200 grams to make a total of 1,000 grams, so we'll be solving to see how many grams we need to make our total of 40 grams. We can set these up as proportions equal to each other. On one side, we have 200 grams over 1,000 grams, and it is set equal to x, what we will be calculating, over 40 grams, our desired total. We can cross multiply the two sides to get 1,000 grams times x equal to 200 grams times 40 grams. By dividing both sides by 1,000 grams, we can isolate x. In doing so, we can also cancel out the 1,000 grams on the left side and some of the units on the right side. Doing some simple math, we can then solve for x, which we get to come out to be 8 grams. Next, we will be solving for mineral oil. Our formula calls for 150 grams of mineral oil for a total of 1,000 grams. However, we'll be solving for how much we need for our desired total of 40 grams. We can once again do this by setting up simple proportions to solve and cross multiply, get our equation. Again, divide by 1,000 on both sides so we can isolate x, cancel out our units, and we get x, which we have here equal to 6 grams of mineral oil needed for our prescription compounding. The last component we need to solve for is white ointment USP. But remember, this was something that we were going to need to compound. First, let's start off by calculating how much our formula actually calls for. So we need 650 grams to make a total of 1,000 grams. We're going to be solving how much we need in our total of 40 grams finished ointment. We can again set up this proportion, cross multiply, get our equation, isolate x, cancel out the units, and solve for x, where we get that x is equal to 26 grams of white ointment USP. However, we said earlier that this was something that we were going to need to compound. So, as part of our prescription that we received, we got a formula for how to calculate white ointment, which is shown here. In order to make it, we will need 50 grams of white wax and 950 grams of white petrolatum. However, this formula again makes a total of 1,000 grams. So to meet what we need for our formula, which was 26 grams, we will go ahead and make 30 grams in order to compensate for any loss that we have while compounding. So for our white ointment USP, the first calculation we'll be doing is for the white wax. Remember, the formula calls for 50 grams to make the total of 1,000 grams. However, we need to calculate what we will need for our total that we will be compounding of 30 grams. Just like before, this can be done by setting up a simple proportion where 50 grams over 1,000 grams, our formula ratio can be set equal to X over 30 grams, our desired compounding ratio. We can cross multiply both these sides and get our equation of 1,000 grams times X is equal to 50 grams times 30 grams. By dividing both sides by 1,000 grams, we isolate X, cancel out our stuff, and get X, which is equal to 1.5 grams. Now finally, we will get to calculating for the white petrolatum. The formula calls for 950 grams to make the total of 1,000 grams. Again, we were going to go ahead and solve what we will need for our total of 30 grams. We can set up our proportion again of 950 grams over 1,000 grams equal to X over 30 grams, do our cross multiplication, and get 1,000 grams times X is equal to 950 grams times 30 grams. Again, we divide both sides out by 1,000 grams so we can isolate X, cross out, and we get X, which is equal to 28.5 grams. Now finally, before we move forward to compounding the prescription, we want to make sure we have calculated everything we need and go over our answers one final time. So for 40 grams of zinc oxide ointment USP, we will need 8 grams of zinc oxide, 6 grams of mineral oil, 26 grams of white ointment USP, which we will be making from 1.5 grams of white wax and 28.5 grams of white petrolatum. To recap, today we went over how to calculate for an ointment compounding prescription. I hope this video was helpful and you feel comfortable and ready to perform these calculations on your own now. Thank you for your attention.